Hello and welcome back to The Breakaway. Anybody who's been around cycling for more than a couple months has probably heard one of their friends or one of their training partners reference an FTP. Your functional threshold power, or FTP, is the power you can produce for 1 hour measured in watts. In this age of power meter ubiquity and indoor trainers, knowing your FTP is one of the most useful tools for building workouts, training plans, and gauging real-time efforts. Today I'll show you how to do an FTP ramp test on the Zwift indoor cycling platform, and as you witness me slide deeper and deeper into my pain cave, we'll talk about the do's and the don'ts of an FTP test, as well as explain the importance of understanding your FTP. To get this test started today, from the home screen, select the clipboard icon in the top left to display the workout collections, then scroll to the bottom and open the FTP test tile. I want to pause here for a sec so you can note that a ramp test isn't the only method to determine your FTP. There are various tests of different lengths, but the premise remains the same, an all-out effort for a specific duration of time. The closer the test is to 1 hour, the easier the math. The ramp test method specifically will take your best 1 minute of effort and multiply it by about 75%. You'll see your 1 minute average power displayed in the top center of the screen once the test begins. So for example, if you bonk out at 200 watts, your FTP will actually be 150 watts. Luckily for us troglodytes, all of Zwift's FTP tests do the math for you at the completion of the test. You just need to hop on and pedal. So, without further ado, let's get this pain party started. The ramp test begins with a 5-minute free ride to loosen your legs, but I don't think that's enough time to properly get the legs fired up before such an important task, so I suggest doing a 10-minute warm-up with progressively harder intervals before you actually begin. Note that the test begins at 100 watts for everybody, but I'm going to cut the video ahead to the heavier blocks so you have something more exciting to watch as I talk you through 3 do's and 2 do nots for a successful FTP test. The first do is to focus on your breathing. The more oxygen you can provide your muscles, the better you'll perform. Open that blower and get your supercharger spinning. The second do is to keep your heart rate in check. This goes hand in hand with focusing on your breathing, and trust me, I know it's much easier said than done. Once you've got your breathing steady, you should constantly remind yourself that the resistance comes in predictable increments. There are no surprises here. The test will increase by 20 watts per minute. Undoubtedly, your heart rate will be through the roof by the end of this test, but the longer you can keep it in check with a bit of mindfulness and confidence, the better. The third do is to focus on your cadence. 85 to 95 RPM is a good range for this type of effort, and you need to get into a rhythm early while the test is easy, then stick to it. The first don't is don't stand up. This is a seated test, and every time you take an FTP test, you'll remain seated for the entire duration. The second don't is don't let your FTP define you. Not only do bigger riders produce more power than smaller riders, but a cyclist's mental fortitude also plays an important role in how long they're able to endure these painful efforts. If you insist on comparing yourself to other riders, the FTP measured in watts per kilogram is a more accurate measure of performance because it considers the rider's weight as well. To determine your FTP in watts per kilogram, you must first measure your FTP in watts, such as the ramp test you see here, and then divide it by your weight in kilograms. To help paint a picture, let's imagine 2 very different sized riders. One has an FTP of 200 watts and weighs 60 kilograms, while the other has an FTP of 265 watts and weighs 80 kilograms. Plugging both cyclists' watts and weights into the watts per kilogram formula shows that while there is a difference of 65 watts and 20 kilograms, both riders have an FTP of 3.3 watts per kilogram. So again, the FTP test is an incredibly insightful tool for your training as a cyclist, but there is absolutely no reason to let it define you. With that being said, the FTP is the most effective metric for building training plans. In today's modern age, nearly every plan's foundation is built from the rider's FTP. An accurately measured FTP gives athletes and coaches a starting point to establish training zones and provides an objective metric to measure an athlete's progress over time, assuming the athlete performs FTP tests regularly. I hear you asking,
how often should I perform an FTP test?
And the truthful answer is that it depends on a lot of factors. But I'm not a fan of such ambiguities, and I expect you aren't either, so the simplest answer is that you should be testing your FTP at the start or end of each training block, which should be roughly every 2 months, give or take a couple weeks. Now, let's bring our attention back to my suffering in the closing seconds of this ramp test. If you haven't noticed, this test is an all-out 11 out of 10 effort until your legs give up. You're going to have to silence the voice in your head complaining about the pain and let your seized engine decide when the final whistle is blown. I won't lie to you, a fully committed FTP test is one of the most painful efforts you'll put yourself through, but the data it provides can be invaluable as you reach for your cycling goals. Plus, it only lasts a few minutes, so how bad could it be? Right? With my heart rate through the roof, my power falling, and the trainer's erg mode raising the resistance to compensate for my slowing cadence, my legs call it quits. Zwift will prompt you that the test is complete and quickly do the math to determine your new FTP displayed at the bottom. Once you select OK, Zwift will automatically update your FTP and training zones to be accurate for training and racing, and you can continue on for a 10-minute cooldown. Or, alternatively, you can have a quick lay on the floor and contemplate your life for a little while, as demonstrated here. Most of my videos end with me reminding you how much fun I had making it. But anybody who's done an FTP test knows I did not have fun making this one. If you enjoyed it though, it would mean a lot to me if you supported the channel. If you've got any FTP test tips or motivation for newer cyclists who are just learning about this incredible training tool, drop them in the comments section down below. And until I see you next time, have a great ride.